Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. This time we're talking episode 11 of Gotham called Rogues Gallery. And this is a pretty fitting title for this episode as it really does sort of focus on, the most part, the bad guys of Gotham, with Gordon and Leslie being exceptions. And yes, I am quite happy to lump Barbara in with the bad guys of Gotham, given her behavior in this episode. In fact, really the only major characters that we don't check in with are Bruce and Alfred, but I assume we'll be seeing them soon. Well, I guess Crispus probably counts, but you can't have everything, and he's really not relevant to anything that's going on. So let's just kind of get right into it. And let's start off with Selina and Ivy. Now, Ivy was one of those characters that we saw her in the pilot, and then she disappeared for a really long time. And now it looks like they're finally going to start bringing her to the forefront a little bit more, which I'm really glad about. Poison Ivy is one of my all-time favorite Batman villains. She's probably right after the Joker in terms of my favorite Batman villains. So I really was looking forward to seeing more of what she would be like here on Gotham. And I gotta say, I do sort of like what they've done with her so far. Ivy sort of started off, and you kind of looked at her as sort of being like an innocent victim in the pilot. Now that she's off on her own, we're kind of starting to see that, man, this kid is seriously messed up. I mean, Selina even said to Bruce that she considers Ivy to be scary. And yet it looks like her time with Bruce might have rubbed off a little bit on Selina, as when she finds Ivy, they're sleeping on the streets, and sick, she shows some compassion to somebody who previously she had flat out said creeped the living hell out of her, and took her to Gordon's apartment where she can probably, well, I imagine Selina's probably going to go out and shoplift some meds or whatever, but she's definitely in a place where she can certainly get better. And of course, we also get that really awesome scene where Barbara calls the apartment, and Ivy kind of picks up on what's going on and plays the flirt very well for somebody who's probably in the 7th grade. Disturbing. But of course, this is fitting. I mean, Poison Ivy has for many years been portrayed as a very skilled seductress. She really knows how to manipulate people, and that's kind of one of her main things besides her plant-based powers. So here we can kind of see that and she just does all of this just for a laugh. So we really do get to see a lot of, if you will, the seeds of Ivy becoming Poison Ivy. Not exactly being planted, but certainly starting to sprout just a little bit. And that, of course, does bring us over to Barbara. And yeah. I feel bad a little bit for the writers on this show. I can't help with the feeling that there's someone just sitting around in the writers' room going like, "Oh God Almighty, how do we fix Barbara?" Because every time we see her, she's just like more and more of a horrible and selfish person. I mean, Barbara calls and I apparently cannot tell the difference between a 13-year-old girl and an adult woman's voice. I mean, I guess maybe she assumed that Jim went out and picked up some squeaky-voiced college freshman or something like that. But still, not being able to pick up the fact that she's talking to a kid, not doing Barbara's image any favors. And then she gets all upset and indignant about it, despite the fact that she herself had left and had already basically hooked up with her ex and was drinking and doing drugs. I mean, that's first scene where you see Barbara, there's a open pill bottle laying right next to her. And then Montoya confronts her about the whole thing and kind of brings up the whole thing that we're toxic together and says, this is a terrible idea. I mean, for so many reasons. And then Barbara just flips the hell out to the point where Montoya has to vacate her own apartment. Sorry, snowplow went by. Just so that Barbara won't storm out onto the streets to do God knows what, God knows where. I mean, at least if she's in Montoya's apartment, Renee has an idea of where she is so she can start doing something possibly to help Barbara out. But, God, she's such a selfish and horrible person. Oh, man, I think the fan hatred for her is basically kind of only eclipsed by the fan hatred for Katrina over on Sleepy Hollow. And at least Katrina is a genuinely good person who's trying to be good. It's just really stupid about it. Barbara's just selfish as hell. And again, does she have a job? Really? I mean, seriously, does this lady have a job? Or is she just like some society girl? You know, kind of living off the trust fund or whatever. I really do think this needs to be spelled out. I mean, I have this vague memory of it being mentioned that she was an attorney at one point, but you know, maybe she went out and got a law degree and stuff, but is not actually a practicing attorney with a job at a law firm that she has to report to. But oh, man, yeah, you know, I got to tell you, folks, at this point, I'm kind of rooting for Leslie Tompkins to secretly be the mother of Batgirl because that's a lot more fitting. And speaking of Leslie, hold on a second. I can never remember that actress's name. And I thought I had it called up, but okay, whatever. All right, well, again, I apologize for not being able to remember her name, but we all know her best as Inara from Firefly. And she has also done, like a lot of the people from Firefly, has done voiceover work for DC animation projects. Nathan Fillion, Adam Baldwin, the lady who played Zoe. I think even Alan Tuki had done some voiceover work. So, like the lady who played Zoe, and again, I'm Torres. All right. She did the voice for Wonder Woman in DC Universe Online, where Adam Baldwin did the voice of Superman. I can't remember who Alan Tuki did. I know he's done some voice work in terms of superheroes. Nathan Fillion, of course, did the voice of Steve Trevor for a Wonder Woman animated project. And our Inara, I'm just going to call her that because I can't remember her name. And don't bother telling me in the comments. I'm sure it'll come to me. She has, from what I've seen, done the voice of Wonder Woman's enemy, Cheetah. She's also done some few episodes as Black Canary, and in recently she actually did the voice of Talia al Ghul for the Son of Batman that came out not too awful long ago. So you know she's a veteran of the DC universe. I think she's kind of earned that title, or at least experienced with it. And so here she's playing Leslie Tompkins. Now in the comics, and I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this before, that Leslie Tompkins is basically the person who kind of found Bruce Wayne there standing over the bodies of his parents and comforted him while the authorities came and dealt with the whole situation. And she's sort of been kind of a confidant of Bruce Wayne and Batman for many, many years. And there's a lot more to her character than that, but that's sort of a bit of a mother figure in Bruce's life is really the best way to kind of think of it. So she and Gordon have some really awesome chemistry right from the start, which I'm really digging. I mean, we were definitely not getting this from Jim and Barbara. And and in a way, she and Jim are kind of people who are in a bit of the same boat. We don't really know much about Leslie at this point, just that she seems to be a good person, and she's stuck here in Arkham, trying to do good in the worst place in the entire city. But like Jim, she's trying her best to do what she can for the place. She shows courage. She shows innovate. Like she keeps a pretty level head given the situation that ultimately happens. And yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more of her. I think she's the kind of adult female character that this show needs. Somebody who's on the side of good. I mean, Selina is still just a kid. Barbara is horribly messed up. Montoya, has the potential there, but she keeps going down the wrong track. I mean, Montoya is a good person at heart, but she's just a good person who keeps making terrible, terrible decisions. She's very blinded by her feelings for Barbara. Leslie doesn't come with that baggage, or at least that we've seen so far. So I think she might be sort of there to, kind of provide that strong, good female character who's on the side of the good guys. And I think that's something that we need at this point. Let's see. Also, the people at the asylum. Let's just kind of clear those up. Although, wait, before we move on from her, when she was getting chased by this inmates, did anybody else kind of flash back to that whole "son of 100 maniacs" thing from Nightmare on Elm Street? Okay, so the administrator guy, apparently he's well known on TV for saying "shit" in some weird way. I have no idea what that's a reference to. But that conversation that he has with Bullock, where like, yeah, of course I have secrets and all this other stuff. Well, the question is, well, who is this guy? Basically taking his marching orders from. I mean, you really get the impression, even though it's never stated in this episode, that he's there just to basically make Gordon's life hell and do everything he can to basically drive Gordon to leave Gotham. Now, the obvious suspect is most likely the mayor. Although I have to kind of wonder if maybe the sort of like the puppet masters of Gotham that Lovecraft referred to, who, in my own mind, I'm just going to pretend are the Court of Owls, might also be doing that. But at this point, that kind of seems like just sort of kicking a guy when he's down to somebody that high level. I really do think it's ultimately going to turn out to be the mayor. He's just the most reasonable suspect. Let's see. We're also introduced to the character of Joseph Gruber, who, as we've discovered by watching the preview for the next episode, is ultimately going to be Gotham's version of the Electrocutioner. Another member of Batman's Rogues Gallery. Now, in the comics, Electrocutioner is some dude named Lester, whatever. No, I mean he's a veteran of Batman's Rogues Gallery, but not a terribly well fleshed out character. Here, Gruber is presented, and I know I'm not the only one that felt this way. Like when I first saw this guy. Sorry, I keep getting distracted by the snowplow right outside my house. Just the look of him, and the actor who portrays him, whose name I don't know, but I'm sure I've seen this guy before. I mean, I do recognize him as a character actor who plays these sort of creepy, smart guys very well. You look at this guy and you think, I thought, like, wait a second, is that Hugo Strange? And it's been confirmed that Hugo Strange is going to be coming on to Gotham. I don't think, of course, that he's going to somehow turn like, oh no, I'm not Joseph Gruber, I'm Hugo Strange. Yeah. No, I mean, I don't think for a minute they're going to pull that. That would be ridiculous. But that is what went through my mind. And another thing is the very docile guy who Gruber ultimately grooms to sort of be his muscle, the fellow named Aaron. Well, this is actually another character from the comics, who's this character named Amygdala, and he's actually very similar to how he's presented here on the show. He's basically a guy with some mental problems and just ridiculously strong. He did some stuff that got him thrown into the system. But unlike the vast majority of Batman's Rogues Gallery, once he got out, he actually left Gotham, tried starting his life over. And if I remember correctly, he actually succeeded and ultimately ended up becoming friends with Nightwing. So Amygdala is actually one of the few Batman villains who successfully reformed himself. And again, I kind of had to have that pointed out to me just because it's been forever since I read a comic with Amygdala, and it was some like issue of Nightwing from years and years ago. Let's see. So, getting back to Gruber, and I keep wanting to call this guy Hans Gruber, even though his name is Joseph. But Die Hard, man, good movie. Okay, but anyway, getting back to it, we do see that he's ultimately the one who's doing this to all the patients, and I had Doris, the nurse, pegged as being a part of that. I thought she was the one that was doing it. So when they take that and they switched it around, it's like, no, it really was this guy all along, and Doris was just one of his victims. That was a really nice twist. I did not see that coming. And Doris herself, I think, kind of was meant to be sort of a character who is sort of in the spirit of Harley Quinn a little bit. She's ultimately, we find out that she's an inmate, but when we see her, she basically is a nurse who becomes one of the bad guys in a way. Well, of course, Harley Quinn was Harleen Quinzel, a psychologist at Arkham, who ultimately became a villain. And I know people have been kind of saying, like, are you going to do Harley Quinn on the show? Are you going to do Harley Quinn? Well, guys, keep in mind, at this point in the way they've been portraying it, it's pretty safe to say that Harley Quinn is probably like 13 years old. She's like junior high school right now. And although I think it would be really cool if she and Ivy were to meet up, because, Harley and Ivy's friendship, and at times more than friendship, or at least as many people believe, is one of the kind of more interesting aspects of interpersonal relationships among the villains of Gotham. So, from what I understand, the people behind the show have talked about it, but they're like, okay, we haven't quite figured out a good way to do her yet, but we're definitely thinking about it. Maybe season 2 is kind of what I've picked up as the official line. But anyway, the thing I don't get about Doris is basically say, like, okay, she was an inmate at Arkham when it closed 10 years ago, and then apparently she just hung out in the basement for 10 years, and then when the asylum opened back up, she, I guess, stole a nurse's uniform and is just like, oh yeah, I totally work here. How in the name of God did this happen? And the thing is, though, when the Bullock is talking to the administrator guy, it kind of flashes to him. It's like, wait a minute, Doris. Like, did this guy know that she was like an inmate? He's just like, oh, Doris thinks she's a nurse. Well, yeah, let her be a nurse. That way she does all this stuff and I don't have to pay her. Like, what the hell? That makes no goddamn sense at all. I don't know. Maybe I just missed something in that episode. Okay, so nothing particular to say about Bullock, but it was nice, seeing him, very happy to be around Jim again. Like, these guys are obviously buds, and it was definitely fun watching him taunt Penguin. And yeah, I kind of think that it covers everything I had to say on the Arkham end of things. So let's kind of pop over to what's going on with the mobsters, and we see that Oswald has fully embraced the name of the Penguin, even insisting on the part of it. And of course, this episode ends up with him getting tossed in jail, and Maroni having to show up to give him a lecture. And I love that Maroni even used the word hubris, which is exactly the word I have used to describe a lot of Oswald's actions over the course of these reviews. And Maroni makes a perfectly valid point. And this is one of Oswald's reoccurring problems, is that he basically just gets too big for his britches, and it comes and bites him in the ass. And, dear God, am I glad this show got David Zayas to play Maroni, because a lesser actor having to toss around the words chicken butt and the line like, you're a smart monkey, but you're still a monkey, and I'm the zookeeper. Oh my, holy, who the hell let that out of the writer's room? I mean, seriously, I gotta give Zayas a lot of credit, because he plays that about as straight and as believable as you could ask from just garbage lines like this. I mean, I get that this isn't Showtime. He can't call Oswald a chicken shit, but I'm pretty sure that the word dumbass is acceptable on Fox. Oh, man, oh man, oh man. Okay. But yeah. Of course, you have to wonder, though, was Oswald doing this entirely of his own volition, or was this something that Carmine put him up to? And I have a feeling it was probably just him getting a little greedy. Looking for, like, yeah, maybe, I don't know whether he was trying to show a little initiative, or maybe trying to dip into the till a little bit. But in any case. So this brings us over to Fish and what's going on with her right-hand guy, Butch. Now Fish and the other three big guys, they kind of get together and sort of spitball, like, okay, what happens when the inevitable happens and Marone and Falcone is no longer in charge? And the dude Jimmy says, well, I'm the senior guy, I should be in charge. That's the tradition, that's the way we've always done things. And Fish raises the perfectly valid point that Gotham's changed, the old rules don't apply, and we're going to have to adapt to deal with this. And Jimmy just kind of blows her off. And I like the fact that they've actually taken the time to really sort of flesh Butch out as a character a little bit here. They really could have just made this guy just a standard straight up thug, but they've given him a sense of humor. He's gotten a few good scenes that are all of his own. And this is one where we kind of get to see a little bit more of how he thinks. And his ultimate thing is, he goes and he talks with his friend and then basically sort of sets him up to kill him. But before he does that, Butch kind of confesses to, that little thing of like stealing meat from him when they were a kid and gets Jimmy's forgiveness. And then the second Jimmy looks the other way, he literally shoots him in the head. This is again fully showing that, Butch might be, muscle for the most part, but he's not a stupid guy. He sees that Fish is right, that the old rules don't apply anymore, and he's hitching his horse to the wagon that he thinks is going to bring him the biggest success. And what I really like about this here, and it's a prime example, and this is also something they do really well in Gotham, is that they don't try and do this whole thing of, mobsters having a code of honor and all this other bullshit. I mean, I hate gangster movies that really try and play that up. Anybody can say, well, I have this set of rules that I live my life by, and I stick to those. Well, you know what? If this list of rules includes thinking it's okay to like kill people for power and money and commit terrible crimes as just your job, then so what the hell that you have a code that you live by? It's ridiculous to call it a code of honor. Nobody who has any sense of anything that could reasonably be called honor will murder a childhood friend for money and power. That is basically the opposite of honor. That is nothing more than greed. And Butch didn't even, just basically like shot him when the guy's head was turned. I mean, that's really no different than shooting a guy in the back. Man, don't even get me started on Yakuza movies, man. I can't stand those. So yeah, I do not have a terribly high opinion of criminals. Wow, what a shock, huh? But still, that whole scene, I mean, it was really nicely done. And it harkens back to something that we see over at the Asylum in a way. And if you missed it, the play that they're performing at the Asylum is called The Tempest. And there's a lot that can be said of The Tempest. If you're like a lot of people, you probably read that in high school. It's really, really good. One of Shakespeare's best plays. And there's this line from The Tempest that's one of my all-time favorite lines of anything that was said in Shakespeare. And it goes, "Hell is empty, and all the devils are here. And man, oh man, if there is any place that is that line could fit, it's Gotham and Sunnydale, but little less literal here in Gotham." So yeah, I really would wish. I think it would really be cool if they did find some way to work that line into the show. But Gotham's not the kind of show where people sit around and quote Shakespeare at each other. Not unless somehow or other that they managed to wrangle an appearance by Patrick Stewart. But anyway, guys, let me see. Anything else? Nope. I think that kind of covers everything that I had to say about this episode. Again, this is a pretty solid episode. We get some really nice characterization moments, but for everybody. But for the most part, this is really just let's introduce Leslie Tompkins. Let's look at the new status quo coming back from the mid-season finale, and let's start moving everything forward. And I really hope that the mob story kind of kicks back up again. Things have been a little quiet on that front for a bit. And I think a major dose of craziness is what we need. So, with that said, guys, I'm going to call it here. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And, of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Who's Your Jedi. Till next time, take care and have a good one.